Hi, this is Attorney Chato Olivas Quinto, and welcome once again to my vlog, Legal Tips at Your Fingertips. Our topic for today is entitled, It's Not Okay to Call Them Deaf Mute, Deaf and Dumb, or Hearing Impaired. Just call them deaf. I had my first encounter with the deaf community more than 10 years ago when I attended a forum on legal aid at the University of the Philippines College of Law. At that time, I was a faculty member. Several marginalized groups were represented: fisherfolk, informal settlers, farmers, abused women, and the deaf abused women and children. The deaf representative communicated through a sign language interpreter, and she said that if abused women and children find it difficult to get legal assistance, more so the deaf women and children. There are no sign language interpreters and they cannot have access to justice because they cannot communicate with the agents of our justice system. I was so touched by their situation. I had handled several cases for women and children who were victims of abuse, but I never heard of the situation of deaf women and children. So I volunteered to provide legal assistance. I met two women advocates who are hearing and who work very closely with the deaf community. One is Dr. Liza Martinez, a sign language linguist, and Mrs. Liwanag Caldito, who assisted an organization called Support and Empower Abused Deaf Children. Now, the first thing they did was to make me learn sign language because they said, how can you help the deaf if you do not know how to communicate with them? So I agreed. They gave me two deaf teachers, Alma and Marisa. In my first lesson, they covered my mouth with masking tape to prevent me from speaking and so that I will communicate in the way I know how, by gestures. Then slowly, they taught me some basic phrases in sign language. When they covered my mouth and I could not speak, I felt emotional for a moment, realizing how difficult it was for the deaf who could not communicate with the hearing, but this time it was the reverse. I was the hearing who tried so hard to communicate with the deaf, and it was frustrating because I did not know sign language. I remember asking Dr. Liza, what do I call the deaf? Is it okay to call them hearing impaired? And she pointed out that perhaps the deaf would consider me sign impaired because I did not know how to sign. So impairment is a matter of perspective. For my deaf friends, it is a huge insult to them to be called deaf mute, deaf and dumb, and hearing impaired. They just want to be called deaf. And my friends let me understand this very well at the start of my association with them. We should not call them mute. Mute means speechless or muffled. When we're in a Zoom meeting, for example, and the other person's microphone is turned off, we say that he's on mute because we cannot hear him speaking. But the deaf are not mute. Deaf mute is a very offensive term. According to the National Association of the Deaf, or NAD, mute is an offensive term from the 18th to the 19th century that means silent and without voice. The NAD points out that this label is technically inaccurate since deaf and hard of hearing people generally have functioning vocal cords. The challenge lies in the fact that to successfully modulate your voice, you generally need to be able to hear your own voice. Again, because deaf and hard of hearing people use various methods of communication other than or in addition to using their voices, they are not truly mute. True communication occurs when one's message is understood by others and they can respond in kind. Yet, there are Philippine laws that use this very offensive label. For example, Article 38 of the New Civil Code of the Philippines refers to the state of being a deaf mute as a restriction on the capacity to act. The underlying philosophy behind this old law, which took effect in 1950, is that deaf persons are restricted simply because they are deaf. I strongly advocate amending this provision because it embodies a serious and unfounded bias against the deaf. This is contrary to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. They are not pipi, which in Tagalog means mute. They are bingi in Tagalog, or this means people who cannot hear. Also, we should not call them deaf and dumb. This is another very offensive term. Dumb means silent and stupid. In its website post, the NAD states, deaf and hard of hearing people have encountered plenty of people who subscribe to the philosophy that if you cannot use your voice well, you don't have much else upstairs and have nothing going for you. Obviously, this is incorrect, ill-informed, and false. Deaf and hard of hearing people have repeatedly proved that they have much to contribute to the society at large. There are many deaf and hard of hearing people who changed the world. I can name 5 of them. Number 1, we have Helen Keller, the educator, activist, and author. 2, we have Kitty O'Neill. She's an American stuntwoman and speed racer. Then we have Haben Girma, a disability rights lawyer and a Harvard graduate. We also have Vint Cerf, mathematician and inventor known as one of the fathers of the internet. And we have Thomas Edison, America's greatest inventor. I'm sure there's several deaf achievers in the Philippines, and I would like to write about them someday. Also, we should not call them hearing impaired. This term is also very offensive because it focuses on the impairment of a person. This is demeaning since it suggests that persons who have hearing difficulties are impaired or deficient. This is known as the medical model or medical perspective on disability. It implies that a person with disability is broken and has to be fixed. Otherwise, he is impaired. According to devon.uk, the medical model can also affect the way people with disability think about themselves. The negative message can convey that all problems of living with a disability stem from not having normal bodies, whatever normal means. A disabled person could then think that their impairments automatically exclude them from participating in social activities. Now, there are 3 perspectives on the deaf and on persons with disability. We already mentioned the medical model. According to this, a person with disability is broken and has to be fixed. The second perspective is the charity model. Persons with disability are looked upon as objects of charity. They need help because they cannot help themselves. And the third and best perspective is the social justice model. This means that disability is just a difference, but it does not make a person less. At one time or another, all of us experience some form of disability. A child does not have the ability to reach high objects. A pregnant woman cannot do certain things at different stages of her pregnancy. Some elderly people who suffer from physical disability cannot perform certain tasks, but they are not less than the others, and they have the same rights as all other human beings. So, what do we call the deaf? Well, we simply call them deaf. Deaf with a capital D. We use the word deaf with a small d to refer to persons with the audiological condition of not hearing. We use the word deaf with a capital D to refer to persons belonging to a common culture with a common language. Some deaf persons do not even consider themselves persons with disability. I remember giving a talk before a group of deaf students about the rights of persons with disability, and one of them stood up and said, "They are not disabled, they are simply deaf." Culture defines the standards within a group. It defines the world of that group. A culture is defined by its language, values, traditions, and rules. I know that people generally mean well when they use these offensive terms because they are not aware that they are offensive. Now that we know, let's tell others so that we can give due respect to our deaf friends and the deaf community. Now, I would like to mention 2 prohibitions in the law against ridicule and vilification against persons with disability. This is stated in Republic Act 9442, or the Magna Carta for Persons with Disabilities. The first offense defined by this law is public ridicule. Now, public ridicule is defined as an act of making fun or contemptuous imitating or making mockery of persons with disability, whether in writing or in words or in action due to their impairments. No individual, group, or community shall execute any of these acts of ridicule against persons with disability in any time and place which could intimidate or result in loss of self-esteem of the person with disability. The second offense is vilification. Vilification is defined as letter A, the utterance of slanderous and abusive statements against a person with disability, and letter B, an activity in which an activity in public which incites hatred towards, serious contempt for, or severe ridicule of persons with disability. Under this provision, any individual, group, or community is prohibited from vilifying any person with disability which could result in loss of self-esteem. So we remember sometimes there are TV shows that insult persons with disability. That is not allowed under this law. Now, there is a penalty for this. A person who violates the provision of this law will suffer the following penalties. For the first violation, there is a fine of not less than 50,000 pesos, but not more than 100,000 pesos, and or imprisonment of not less than 6 months, but not more than 2 years. And for subsequent violations, a fine of not less than 100,000 pesos, but not more than 200 pesos, or imprisonment for not less than 2 years, but not more than 6 years, or both. All these are just intended to show that we must respect the deaf and all persons with disability because they have the same human rights as everyone else. Let's tell others about this. Feel free to pass on this video to your friends, and remember to like and subscribe so that you will receive notices of our future videos. God bless you all.